Well, as I said, we were going to be joined by Richard Lewis. He has now joined us here at the Live at Wimbledon studio. Thank you so much for joining us, Richard.
A pleasure.
These must be nightmare thoughts for you. You're looking around and people are putting umbrellas up. This is the worst thing for you, isn't it?
Well, it is in many ways. It's the worst thing for everybody. It's the worst thing for players. It's the worst thing for the spectators, the media, who are here to talk and commentate on tennis. And it's, yes, from an administrators and officials' point of view, you're trying to constantly make decisions that are fair to everybody. But of course, in the end, you just have to make judgment calls, and sometimes it will fall in favour of one player or one section of the draw over another. And there's nothing you can do about it in these sorts of conditions.
We have to start off by talking about the roof, the famous roof. Earlier in the week, you were sort of slightly criticised, or the club was criticised because the roof was on, but it wasn't raining. And then yesterday, it was raining, but the roof wasn't on. Do you feel like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't?
Well, to be clear, to everybody's surprise, we have actually been consistent. We made a decision to close the roof, and the button was pressed to close the roof when it was raining. 2 or 3 minutes later, and that's the truth, it was literally 2 or 3 minutes later, it stopped raining, the skies cleared. But once you press that button, the roof was in the process of opening, and then you're into a half-hour process, closing rather. So the roof closed, and we kept the roof closed. We kept the roof closed for the rest of the day because there was a forecast of a 70% chance of showers. And once the roof is closed, given that it's a half-hour time period before the roof is open, you can start playing again. With a 70% chance of showers, once the roof is closed, you're much better off keeping it closed, and that's what we did for the rest of the day. As it happened, it didn't rain.
No. Sorry, Matt.
Now, to clarify that rule, when you have closed the roof in the match, that match is going to be finished under the roof.
Exactly.
Yeah, but if there's a sunny forecast in the next few hours, you would open the roof most probably and let the other matches be played without the roof.
Yes, if there was a 30–40% chance of showers, we'd probably, and you say a rule, it's not a rule, it's a policy, it's almost a judgment call on a day. But if you've got a forecast of the next 2 hours, 3 hours, there's a 30–40% chance of rain, you probably would open the roof and say it's an outdoor tournament, let the match start in the open without the roof, and if it rains, you close the roof again. But again, you know, you can be criticised for that because you're bringing players on and off court, which is dreadful for players and spectators.
Well, I'm looking at the weather forecast now, and it says 50% risk of light and intermittent rain around noon, which is obviously where we are now, which is spot on because it is raining, and then 70% this afternoon, this evening. The roof's open just now. We've got the covers on centre court. This is a horrible situation for you because they're playing elsewhere. So what do you think is going to happen now? Will you shut it?
Well, this is a classic, isn't it? The players have come off some courts and behind us they're playing on others. What can you do? We had a situation last Friday where it was raining on some parts of the ground, it wasn't on others, because you can hear on the walkie-talkie people reporting in from the court saying it's raining here, and they bring them off the court, and another part of the complex it's not raining and you continue. They've come off centre court from what I can see. I would expect probably the roof will be closed, but I'm not looking at the Met Office radar as we speak. Others are in the referee's office, and they'll make a decision based upon what the Met Office radar and the experts are telling the referee's office at this moment in time. And if they're saying we think it's going to keep raining for a while, the roof will be closed.
Mikael Jusni and Dennis Isterman was actually playing on court 18, and they finished the whole match yesterday. So if you want to put a summer house out there in Wimbledon, that's the court to do it, because it never rains over there. It's incredible.
But unfortunately for Andy Murray, of course, he was on court 1 yesterday. Now, you know what I'm going to ask you, because obviously there's been a lot about this in the papers. And we're just looking here at the Mirror. You cannot be serious. Wimbledon bosses slammed after Murray's hopes are drowned in the court 1 rain. You know, you were accused of being too fair by putting Andy Murray there and allowing centre court to go to some of the other nations' players.
Well, this is the Championships. We pride ourselves being a global event. We believe we're the best tennis tournament in the world, so we do what's right in the overall interests of the men's draw and the women's draw. Andy Murray had a very tough draw. All his matches were difficult on paper, and they proved to be some challenging matches. We never had a situation where there was a particularly great forecast for any particular day last week. So there was never any obvious time for players to play on centre or number 1. Andy has to have a turn on number 1, or ideally would have a turn on number 1 court, just like the other top players. And he was scheduled on number 1 yesterday, and the forecast was that actually if the forecast had turned out to be 100% correct, he would have had ample opportunity to finish the match. But that's life. And once you've started a match on that court, you ideally finish it on that court. That's a protocol that I think is pretty much understood around the world. But we'll just have to see how it goes today to see whether he has time to finish the match. But we're certainly not being biased in one direction or another. We're just trying to make the right call on each individual situation.
Of course, last night we stopped at what, 8:15, I think. You could have potentially 5 to 8. You could have potentially put another match. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, the thinking was that there wasn't a huge advantage, that it wasn't just picking out one match wasn't going to make a massive difference. And by the way, it wouldn't necessarily have been Andy Murray's match. If you look at the draw, it's not necessarily Andy Murray's match that goes from
So you could have done
number
that,
one to centre.
You could have moved Andy Murray from 1 to centre.
Huge issues moving a top player from one show court to another show court. That genuinely creates safety issues. There's no question about that.
We can see now that the roof is closing, and you're sitting here and you haven't told them to press the button, Richard.
No, I don't. Make the final decision one way or the other. I mean, there's a number of us who will discuss the situation, and I'm not surprised the roof's closing. The forecasters said when we opened the roof, they said there's an 80% chance of rain, and we knew that by 12:30 it probably would be raining, and so we knew that. Again, it's a classic example of trying to do the right thing. This is an outdoor event. We wanted to start the match outdoors. If all the other courts were playing, why wouldn't we start without the roof on centre court? So the roof is opened. It rains. We close the roof and we finish the match.
Yeah, and I guess another thing that I've heard talk about would be that the roof is there for when it's raining, but to get the lights on, we obviously have to put the roof on. And so they can finish a match later. That's always a very difficult decision, like with Rafael Nadal and Lucas Russell.
Yes. When do you stop a match? When is it the fairest possible time to stop a match? And you can say keep playing until it gets so dark that you can't see the ball and you have to stop. 4 in the 5th set or whatever. Is that the right time to stop, or do you actually stop at the beginning of the set? And when you make that sort of decision, in the end, there's always going to be one player. Nearly always going to be one player who's more wanting to keep going, and there's another player maybe just lost a set and says, actually, I wouldn't mind stopping now. You have to do what you believe from a tennis independent neutral point of view is the right thing to do. The beginning of the set felt like the right thing to do because it was certain they wouldn't have had time to finish that match. And again, the forecasters are giving us some predictions on when play would have to stop. And they were predicting that we probably had about another 15 minutes of play because centre court again has a roof. There's less light as the gloom of the evening dusk comes in. You have to stop earlier on centre court because of the light than you do on some outside courts. These are all the issues that the referee's office is dealing with.
Do you wish that you'd put Andy Murray on court 1 earlier in the week, though, last week?
Well, not particularly. I wish it hadn't rained so much. That's what I wish. That's the truth of it.
We all wish that, though.
There was no obvious opportunity when everybody. In fact, I don't remember anybody crying out for on the Monday or the Tuesday or Wednesday of last week saying, why isn't Andy Murray on court 1? Yeah. We've done what it looked like the right thing to do at any given time regarding the order of play, and we are where we are. I wish a lot of things weren't going on right now, such as rain-stopping play in particular.
Another question I think that will come up is, of course, we have 6 days left of the tournament, and there's 4 matches for the men to be completed in 6 days. When do you start thinking about a Monday final?
Well, it's too soon to start thinking about that now. Right now, we're looking at a forecast which is not particularly great for today, but it is changing. I was going to say by the hour. To be honest, it's changing by the minute, so you never know. We might get 2 or 3 hours play today. We might get a lot of matches finished, which would help. The forecast is pretty good for the next couple of days. It's dry. The last time I looked, it was forecast to be dry. We could get a lot of matches played over the next couple of days, and the issue of playing on a 3rd Monday will go away.
John Lloyd said that he thinks you should have put a roof on. I know you weren't in charge then, but there should have been a roof put on court 1. And in fact, he seemed to think you should have quite a few roofs here at Wimbledon. What's your view on that? Well,
I'd love to know how he thinks it should have been built on court 1 and what the technical feasibility study would have said about that. John has a right to pass an opinion, but the truth is that we put a roof on centre court is something like 5 years ago. We're learning all the time about the benefits and the challenges that a roof has in terms of decision making. We certainly want to give serious consideration to a roof on court 1, but it's a very different technical issue compared to centre court. It's a very different type of structure, and the type of method for making sure that the court will be playable in all weather conditions is a very different issue technically on court 1 than it is on centre court.
Well, it's absolutely throwing it down now. It's properly raining. It's
even
hot.
On court 18.
Even on court 18.
They've only just stopped playing actually on 19. They were just going around for cover there. But it must be tough for you then when you see these headlines and you presumably just think, well, the British weather, what can I do? You're doing your best.
No, that's the first time I've seen those headlines. No, we're just making the decisions that are right, the right decisions given all the information. And I'm sure a lot of these journalists, they're doing their job, that's fine. But I'm sure they don't have all the information available that we have. And I'm sure when they start to talk about switching matches from one court to another, they don't really understand all the issues involved, and they wouldn't want to be part of something that actually causes a safety issue.
How are you finding your first Wimbledon in charge?
Actually, do you know, honestly, it's enjoyable. It's challenging, and again, I can't say it often enough, I wish the weather wasn't like this, because that's no fun for anybody. I don't want people to come to Wimbledon and not see tennis, and the players not to have a great experience. But from a personal point of view, whilst it's challenging, I'm enjoying it. It's great to be back in tennis. It brings back many happy memories. Wimbledon is a wonderful, not home is perhaps stretching it, but it's a wonderful place for me in terms of I've been here a club member for 25 years. I played here for 13 years, so it's great to be bringing back some of those memories and trying to contribute in a positive way to another successful championship. And I believe by the end of the championship we'll all think it was a great championship. We had a fantastic first week, don't forget. Fantastic.
It was.
Do you wish possibly that you'd managed to bring in a Sunday rather than have that day break, so that you could just cram some more tennis in with the good weather?
No, I really think that playing on the middle Sunday is a huge issue. The courts need some time to recover. Centre court's getting quite a battering at the moment in terms of playing longer, because we're starting an hour earlier today. Lots of tennis under the roof doesn't exactly help the centre court. There's a lot of people working long hours here, so I think the middle Sunday, the fact that we got a rest day, I think was very good for all the people involved, and probably didn't do the players any harm either.
I'd imagine you're working fairly long hours. What time do you get here in the morning, and what time do you leave at night?
Well, like many people here delivering the championships, I get here about 7 o'clock, and yesterday was early, so I got away about 10:30, 11:15, and I've left a couple of times after midnight. But believe me, there's a lot of people working longer hours than that.
And what time did you leave? If you left at 11 last night, when did you leave after the Murray match, the Bagdatis match?
That was after midnight, that one.
Okay.
It's fine. It's
fine.
Well,
Yeah.
It just goes with the territory.
You're enjoying it. That's the important
I'm enjoying
thing.
it.
Okay, Richard Lewis, the Wimbledon Chief Executive, thank you so much for joining us here at Live at
Pleasure.
Wimbledon.